I'll call this regular council meeting to order with adoption of the agenda. Councillor Devlin, seconded by Councillor Orlando, all in favor? That's passed. We'll move on to adoption of the minutes of the October 22nd regular council meeting. Moved by Councillor Cherry, seconded by Councillor Devlin, all in favor? And that's passed. Is there any business arising from the minutes? See no questions, we'll move on to announcements from the mayor. So I just wanted to congratulate the Chamber of Commerce for the BEAs. It was a great party for everybody. A reminder that as bears are moving their way into town, that everybody has their garbages secured. And I would like to make sure that everyone has their thoughts for the mayor who has gone into surgery, for him and his family. Another thing to mention is the passing of John Horgan. He was the premier here in BC from 2017 to 2022. He was appointed after he stepped down to be the ambassador to Germany by Justin Trudeau. So we are mourning the passing of him at the age of 65 due to health complications. Yes. Okay. We'll move on to recommendations from committees. Anyone want to put the first one out? Councillor Devlin.
Committee of the Whole recommend to Council on October 10th, 2024 that the 2025 Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw be developed for Council consideration using the proposed changes as outlined in the October 10th, 2024 Committee of the Whole report.
Councillor Devlin, I don't think that is the first one.
That's what I got.
I guess Public Infrastructure Committee.
Nothing from a public infrastructure. That's
Oh,
that's me. Yeah, I'm doing A.
I have the same version as Councillor Devlin. So.
As do I.
Okay, so I guess I have the wrong one.
No, you have the right one. Oh, no,
Okay.
you don't. Sorry.
Okay, perfect, cool. Sorry, Councillor Devlin, go again?
No, I think that's it. That's the whole motion.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Does anyone want to second that one? Councillor Cherry. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, we'll carry that one. Item 8B.
I think there's a second part.
Oh, 8.2, yeah.
I will move that the city departments be requested to submit quarterly reports to keep council apprised of current project and statistics to enable more informed decision making.
Happy to second that.
Second by Councillor Cherry. All in favor? Sorry.
Just a quick on discussion. If that's...
Yep.
Yeah, just regarding that, I'm wondering if staff needs any feedback, has any further requests for clarification on that recommendation from the committee.
Don't see any input from staff. Anyone?
I guess that's a hard no.
Sorry, Councillor Orlando, through the mayor. I believe it was quite specific when we had that meeting that it was when Ms. Donato presented hers and council recommended that it be similar format to that.
Okay. Just by way of thought in discussion, with the reports, I think it would be great to have some flexibility. My usual process would be that, for example, a proposal on how to do the reports will be brought forward. I'd be happy to see recommendations and suggestions when the first reports come through. For example, I think though it'd be great for council to have an opportunity to let staff know what sort of information they're looking for, what works for them, what is not necessary. Part of my point is making sure council gets the right information they want. The other part of it is not making it odious for staff to generate these reports. And that's the basis of it. So I don't know if senior staff has any thoughts on that.
No, I got no issue with that. That makes total sense. I mean, council has to get the information to make an informed decision on any topic. If it's just an attempt to clarify that and make it as streamlined and as effective as possible, we're always looking for feedback from the governing body. in the end, you make the decision, so, noted.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, item 8B. You want to put that one on the table? Councilor Devlin.
Okay, as well. Public Infrastructure Committee recommended to council on October 17th, 2024, that staff proceed with final design of the wastewater treatment plant.
And a second for that one? Councilor Stapenhurst? Any discussion? All in favor? Sorry. Orlando?
Yes, through the chair, I'm wondering if staff is able to provide a update of this. This was at the Public Infrastructure Committee meeting, so not everyone had a chance to be there. I'm wondering if staff has a brief update on the wastewater treatment plant, which is a priority project for the community, and a big one too.
Director Black?
Thank you, Your Worship, and all the council. Council is aware that just prior to UBCM, we worked with the province to return to our original scope of wastewater treatment plant upgrades, and that's a phase one. We're working on approximately 7 items that the province has asked us to provide prior to their approval, and moving forward with construction in the spring, assuming that we have budget and the provincial approval sometime in January, February this year. Any other questions?
See no other questions, we'll call the question. All in favor? Passed unanimously. We'll move on to 8C.
I'm not reading that.
Councilor Devlin.
This is my meeting. The Committee of the Whole recommends to Council on November 7th, 2024, that the financial plans and the highlights within the financial plans be circulated for public feedback and comment, including increases as follows. Property taxes, 7% increase in 2025, 3% directly for the Arena Rehabilitation Fund, along with 6%, 5%, and 4% increase scenarios. Garbage rates, 10% increase in 2025, water user rates, 5% increase in 2025, and Big Eddy water user rates, 5% increase in 2025, sewer user rates and sewer frontage charges, 5% increase in 2025.
Friendly amendment. The word rehabilitation reserve, word reserve fund was missing in that.
I just didn't typically read out the things in brackets, but 3% directly for the Arena Rehabilitation to the Reserve Fund, as per the package.
Seconder. Councilor Terry. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed?
Opposed.
Councilor Palmer's opposed. Balance of council is in favor. Councilor Devlin, you want to keep going?
Sure, why not? We've got the financial plans, including the operating and capital major project spending packages, be presented for public comment and feedback.
Seconder for that one. Councilor Stapenhurst. Any discussion? Councilor Orlando.
Thank you, through the chair. Just a general comment, and it sort of applies to all of these items. I did have a chance as an anecdote to talk to a resident on the weekend about their budget concerns or thoughts. Definitely, I would really appreciate everyone who wants to write in. I'm really looking for qualitative feedback, people sharing things that they have expertise on and their feelings. So this is one opportunity, as well as with the next and the previous item, to provide feedback. I'm just really interested in hearing the feedback that people have, and what we're doing here is putting forward, providing staff approval to put this package forward to the public so they can look to see what we have planned through the budget.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Moving on to item 3. Councilor Devlin.
As well. That the public engagement sessions be scheduled from 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. and from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, November 28, 2024, in the MP1 room located at Revelstoke Community Center.
Seconder for that? Counselor Terry? Any discussion?
I just want, if I can,
Yeah.
to the chair, I just want to make sure that this goes out on all social media platforms so that the community is well aware that they have this opportunity to be involved.
Thank you for the comment. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. We'll move on to bylaws. 9A, fees and charges amendment bylaw.
Councilor Lucio, Acting Mayor Lucio to there's for council. The fees and charges bylaw was presented to committee of the whole on October 10th. There have been a couple of slight changes since then that are highlighted in the report. Basically, the fire chief has amended the base fire inspections to be one standard amount at this point, and we'll be considering separating them out into other areas at the next annual update. We've also included an option for childcare facilities and registered nonprofits to not be charged for those inspections. In addition to adding an hourly charge for inspections outside of city limits. And then Ms. Donato has added in Schedule E, businesses advertising specific programs for youth and community events, they receive a discount. Other than that, the bylaw was created using what was presented to you on October 10th, and it's in front of you for consideration, or if you have any questions.
Does someone want to put this on the table so we can discuss? Councilor Terry.
I move that fees and charges amendment bylaw number 2399 be read a first, second, and third time.
And a second for that one, Councilor Devlin. Any discussion on this bylaw? Councilor Bonner.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Based on the changes, I think they're reasonable, but based on that, I think we should only be doing the first and second reading at this time. Leave some time for sober second thought for a future meeting. I won't be in favor of first, second, and third reading, but I'll put a propose an amendment that to change the motion to first and second reading only.
Thank you for your comments.
We would need a seconder for that.
Yes. Does anyone want to second that amendment? Councilor Devlin?
Yeah, and I'll just give a quick comment to that. I'm fine with the amendment. That way, if anybody really wants to do the third reading right away, just do a separate motion for that. And it seems to be the easiest way to go through this, in my opinion.
Any other comments from council? Call the question on the amendment. All in favor? Opposed? Passed unanimously. Do you want to put it on for a third time, or should we move on?
I'd like to check with staff to make sure this doesn't affect anything they have on the go. Thank you, Chair.
Through the chair, Ms. Moore, do you have any comments?
Through the chair, we require the bylaw to be adopted by the end of November in order to bill any inflationary increases for business licenses for 2025. Otherwise, everything else needs to be adopted by the end of the year so that we can start billing fees January 1st, 2025 with the increased rates.
Councilor Devlin?
We do another meeting on November 26th, so that's still. We wanted to give it a pause. Just so. No.
Sounds to the benefit.
I do believe that the business license letters go out in advance of that, though, do they, Ms. Moore?
typically we send out business letters or business invoices at the beginning of November. However, this year, due to the change in due date with the recent business bylaw amendment, they are due January 31st, so we intend to send them at the end of November, before the Christmas rush. However, my understanding is that, typically we want the bylaw adopted by the end of the week in order to send those letters out. And I don't think you can do third reading and adoption in the same meeting.
Cannot. Only for OCP and zoning.
Councilor Devlin?
I will move the fees and charges amendment bylaw number 2399 be read a third time.
Second by Councilor Terry. Any discussion on the matter? Councilor Palmer?
Thank you, Councilor Lucio. So just for clarification, are we being informed that council doesn't have a choice on this? Or is this just a choice that council is choosing to make on the bylaw?
We got two.
Feel like that'd be to Director Moore?
Through the chair to provide clarity, it will delay the business license invoicing if we don't receive adoption until the December 10th meeting, I believe. Which would result in the city sending business license invoices at the beginning of January, the January 31st deadline. So typically, we do like to give 60 days, given the fact that it's around the Christmas holidays.
Thank you. Councilor Palmer, do you have any follow-up?
So if we don't have a choice on the matter, then I'm not sure why we're debating it. If we have a choice, it's my view that we should be giving this enough pause for sober reconsideration in that period of time, and I think that's reasonable. So I'll be opposed to the third reading. I think there's a problem if the third reading fails at this point, but I would recommend to my colleagues at the table that this motion be deferred to the next meeting. I'm not putting that motion on the table, but I'm just be my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments around the table? Sir?
Councillor Palmer, you do have a choice. Ms. Moore was just bringing it to your attention that there are implications based on what is the outcome may be.
Through the chair, so thank you very much. Based on that, I would, through to council, the decision makers at the table, I think there's enough change here that that the third reading should be at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else around the table? Councilor Orlando?
Just for clarification of where we're at, was there amendment to first and second reading right now, or are we doing?
We already approved that. This is for third.
This is
reading.
for third.
Yes,
Thank you.
no problem. If I see no more comments, I'll call the question. All in favor of third reading? Opposed? Councilor Orlando and Councilor Palmer are opposed. Balance of council is in favor. Okay, we'll move on to 9B, utility rates amendment bylaw. Councilor Devlin.
Move that utility rates amendment bylaw number 2400 be ready first, second, and third time.
Seconder for that. I'll second it. Any discussion on the user rate amendment?
See Justin's. I'm gonna lose my voice. Maybe I have somebody.
Mr. Weatherall, if you have a presentation or any comments, you can do that now.
I don't have any presentation. I just wanted to just note there was as per the report, we have increases reflective of 5% for water, Big Eddy water, and the sewer utility rates, and then a modification or a deviation from the prior 5-year financial plan rate increase of garbage from 4% to 10%. And this is to accommodate the financial impact of the increase of CSRD tipping fees at the refuse facility. And then there's another slight deviation. We've added we've aligned the Big Eddy Waterworks metered rate in the schedule to align with the regular water rates. And then also we've done a bit of assessment over coin laundry and laundry other rates in the 2025 update, as there was a bit of inequity among the small amount of users that the laundry rates apply to. So we did make a small change on that as well. Just to note that for council.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'll put a motion to amend the motion to be just to first and second reading.
Does anyone want to second that amendment?
Second for discussion.
Councillor Orlando. Discussion on the matter? Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Lucio. Yeah, much the same dialogue as before. After this passes, I do have a question regarding some of the changes, or if this passes or if not.
Councillor Devlin.
Yeah, just a comment. I think this specific thing, I see the other side of the conversation with the last motion, just based on the fact that things had changed since last we saw it. This we've had multiple conversations on and multiple different committees. So I don't see the point in drawing this one out particularly any longer, especially as it's going to be submitted for public feedback.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments around the table? Okay, I'll call the question sorry, Councillor Orlando.
Just to clarify, we're on the question on the proposed amendment, is that
Yes,
correct?
the amendment for first and second reading. Call the question for first and second reading. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Devlin is opposed. Balance of council is in favor.
I believe we might have had a procedural error there.
Yeah.
Just point of order. So there was an amendment to amend to first and second reading. So I think we
That's
need
correct.
to amend, we need to vote on whether to amend to first and second reading, not do first and second reading.
We need to call the question on the amendment.
Okay.
Yeah.
My mistake.
That's why I asked, because I
Yeah, no.
The recommendation on the table right now is to give bylaw 2400 first and second reading only.
So then there'll be an opportunity to give a third reading directly after.
That is correct.
Sorry, and everyone knows the minutia. Wouldn't we vote on the amendment, whether to accept the amendment to actually have first and second reading? If that fails, then we would go back to first, second, and third reading? Is that not? Sorry, and it's not important to me, but I don't want to mess it up.
So if that fails, then yes. But right now, the amendment is to give it first and second reading. If that amendment passes, then we don't go back to first, second, and third reading. Third reading would have to be put on the table, just the same as the fees and charges. If it's failed, then it goes back to first, second, and third.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Any other questions before I call the question on the amendment for first and second reading?
So are we passing first and second?
Because it just happened.
Okay, call the question on first and second reading. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimously supported. Does anyone want to put third reading on the table? Councillor Devlin.
I'll move that utility rates amendment bylaw number 2400 be read a third time.
Point of order.
Yep. Councillor Bowman.
I believe we just passed the amendment and that the motion for first and second reading is now on the table.
As amended.
As amended? Okay.
That's what I meant, yeah, we're all on the same page now.
So, way to make this one challenging, guys. Okay. Now calling the question on first and second reading for the user rates amendment bylaw. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Counselor Devlin.
I would like to move that utility rates amendment bylaw number 2400 be read a third time.
Seconder for that one? Counselor Staphenhurst. Counselor Palmer.
Thank you. Just speaking to the motion, again, I would recommend that this be deferred to a future meeting. That said, I do have a question specifically on the changes to the bylaw. Have we discussed the laundry changes, those user rate changes in the committee of the whole? I may not have been at that meeting. I'm just wondering if that specific item was discussed amongst council.
No, it was not discussed by council.
So through the mayor, I would suggest, actually, I'm going to put a motion that this be deferred to the next regular council meeting.
Anyone want to second that motion?
I'll second it for discussion.
Counselor Orlando.
There was no discussion on a deferral motion.
Oh, okay, then,
You can withdraw.
yeah, yeah, thank you for pointing out that technicality. My thought was I'm interested in the rationale, but barring the rationale, I don't know if I want to think for a second here. No, yeah, I'll maintain the second to support the deferral.
Okay, so Counselor Orlando seconded the deferral. Since there is no discussion, I will call the question to defer the third reading to the next council meeting. All in favor of deferral? Counselor Palmer and Counselor Orlando are in favor. Opposed? Counselor Devlin, Staphenhurst, Cherry, and Lucio are opposed, so that motion is defeated. So we're still on third.
Yeah.
Perfect. I love the process. Any other comments? Counselor Palmer.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Lucio. I'll be opposed to this based on the fact that this council has not considered in a regular meeting some of the proposed changes. I do have some concerns, and some of the members of the public have previously been in touch with me, and this comes as a bit of a surprise. And I'm not sure if it will be coming as a surprise to them as well. But based on that, I will be opposed to the third reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from councilors around the table? Director Moore.
Through the chair, I just want to note that 2025 commercial Q1 utilities, we do bill them at the beginning of December. So similar to the business licenses, if the bylaw is not adopted by the end of November, we will have to delay our invoicing and billing.
Thank you. Councilor Orlando, did you have a comment?
Yeah, through, thank you through the chair. Just, I throw a question out there perhaps for staff and perhaps for Councilor Palmer, who is expressing concerns about some of the changes in sort of inadequate discussion or notification. Is there anything that can be achieved right now to reduce those concerns or address those concerns? Can staff be asked to provide supplemental information right now to get clarification on the concerns that you're expressing? So I'm not sure line by line item exactly what they are. You mentioned a couple things, and I'm just trying to see if maybe we can drive towards a bit more consensus decision here and get this behind us.
Councilor Palmer, do you have a comment?
Thank you through the chair. If staff could give an overview of those changes that haven't been before council before, what's gone up and what's gone down. It's a fairly lengthy, when we look at the attachments in the report, they're fairly lengthy, and I know there's track changes there, but if those ones could be highlighted. I'm specifically interested in the changes to the water rates for laundry based on the assistant director's comments on changes to the laundry rates.
Through staff, Mr. Weather or Director Moore?
Through the chair, the laundry rates specifically were adjusted as the fees did not make sense in terms of the ratio of what was being billed for water versus sewer. And staff went through a lengthy process with Mr. Parliament to ensure that we were updating them in an equitable way and making them more representative for each utility fund. And I believe the only other change that's worth noting is, I'm not sure why, but the Big Eddy water meter rate per meter cubed was more than the regular water fund. And so we adjusted it to be the same on a per meter basis. So both Big Eddy water and the regular water fund, if you are being billed on a meter, they pay the same rate. So those are the two that are worth noting that I can think of off the top of my head.
Thank you. Mr. Trevor?
Further to that, because protecting the privacy and interests of all accounts, whether it's water or sewer, I can't get into the details involving the discussions I've had with a user. That's an in-camera discussion, but I can report that we've resolved that issue with one of the users specific to the water sewer charge in their particular business. We have resolved that internally. Staff have looked into that in great depth to arrive at a equitable and fair charge moving forward. The challenge, council, is we are transitioning to a metered community, and we are looking at more and more users to get onto meters in the next coming months and years. And so when it comes to certain accounts, it's always a challenge to charge them the old fixed rate versus installing a meter and going with what we all agree is a consumptive rate. We need to do a deep dive and a very thorough review of our utility fees and charges, but we're transitioning to meters. So in short, I can assure Councillor Palmer that I have resolved that particular issue with that one client vis-a-vis water sewer rates for their business. But we also need to fix our overall water sewer utility fees as we transition to meters. I just can't comment on the details because it's in a full public meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Palmer?
Thank you through the chairs. Thank you staff for some of that explanation. The second question is on maybe a little bit more clarification on the Big Eddy rate. So it makes some intuitive sense to me to be aligning them. Can staff explain at a high level what the changes, what's the impact to the Big Eddy water users? Is this causing a significant increase, or is it? Can you explain that to me, maybe just a little bit, or to council a little bit more exactly what that impact on those rates are? Again, I've had some of the businesses in the Big Eddy express some concerns to me, and so that's what I'm trying to understand.
Director Moore?
Through the chair, in response to Councillor Palmer, I'm not sure why, however, the Big Eddy Water in a previous bylaw had a meter cube rate that was more than the regular water fund. So we have reduced that rate to mirror what the water users in a regular water fund pay. So no matter what water system you are on, you are paying the same rate per meter cubed. At this time, I'm not aware of anyone in the Big Eddy utilizing this rate. So this was more of a housekeeping cleanup item. If we have a user have a meter be installed and be billed on a meter basis in that area.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, through the chair. So for clarity then, this is a new rate and it's kind of hard to quantify how the impact would have been because it's theoretical, if I'm understanding that correctly. I think based on that, I'm wanting to be supportive of this. I'm disappointed that we defeated a deferral, to allow a discussion, to a better understanding. I think that's why this is important. From that, I can't support the third reading as it stands right now as much as I would like to. And to me, that's disappointing. So we're rushing. I'm talking to council now, not staff here, but we're rushing through first, second, third readings. And I think it would have been reasonable to have had that third reading at a future meeting and adoption accordingly. So there's a disappointment from my perspective of that sort of rushing through without us fully understanding this. Maybe the rest of council fully understand the implications here and have thought it through. But this is the first discussion that we've had on these particular items in a meeting, I believe, whether that's a council meeting or committee of the whole, in these couple specific items. And that's where my disappointment. So based on that, I will be opposed to the third reading. Thank you, Acting Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Any other comments or questions around the table? I'll call the question on third reading. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Orlando, Councillor Palmer are opposed. Balance of council is in favor. We will move on to 9C, Advisory Planning Commission Establishment Amendment Bylaw. Jeez. Is there a presentation from staff?
To your worship, no formal presentation from staff, but I can give a high-level overview if that's desirable. If not, I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
I think an overview would be great.
Thank you, council. So staff have been working with the Advisory Planning Commission to look at the terms of reference contained within the APC bylaw and figure out how we can rejig it so that the APC can serve as more of a support on setting policy that will be applicable citywide rather than reviewing individual applications that would come before council, especially considering the vast majority of those applications are form and character development permits, which are non-discretionary. So a good example would be instead of the APC reviewing a form and character development permit that the city is not legally able to say no to when it complies with our DPA guidelines or development permit area guidelines, the APC would be working with staff to help revise our development permit area guidelines that would be applicable citywide. Right now, the APC bylaw is set up that they can basically do both at the discretion of council. We did try this with the zoning bylaw comprehensive rewrite, and what became very clear is it was a huge strain on this volunteer committee. We would have a 2-hour-long meeting. The first hour and a half would be eaten up by current planning applications, which we are seeing a lot of them. Between 2023 and 2024, we've had 32 applications we brought before the APC. And by the time we got to the end and we started delving into zoning bylaw issues, the APC was quite tired and we really didn't have the bandwidth to delve into those issues in a significant way. So this would hopefully look at revising the type of items that are brought before APC so that they can focus on that community planning element, help provide feedback on those high-level strategic, and it allows for more free-flowing discussion. Staff don't have to constantly say, based on legal precedent, this is the box that we're in on this particular application. It's broader conversations that are about the community interest. In addition, we're looking at getting some clarifying amendments in there for when the chair and vice chair can be selected. So instead of it being in the first meeting of every year, it would be any time with an affirmative vote, give some flexibility for the volunteer committee, and then as well clarifying with the help of Ms. Floyd some of the parameters around conflict of interest, because we do have some members of the APC that work on a variety of projects throughout town, some of which ultimately come before the APC. So definitely a lot of clarifying housekeeping amendments in there, but the main ones are the type of applications that would go before them. And it is noted that council always has the ability, we bring forward a development permit, council says this is a really big DP that we want the APC to provide feedback on, defer a decision, direct it to APC, APC reviews, provides feedback, comes back to council. And we also structured the bylaws so that the director, myself right now, would also be able to direct applications to the APC when they are contentious. In addition, right now, the APC only looks at development permits, zoning bylaw amendments, and official community plan amendments. This would allow temporary use permits as well as development variance permits, in addition to the three aforementioned types of applications to go before APC at the discretion of the director or council. So any questions, happy to answer them. We have vetted this through the APC, and after a lengthy conversation, you'll see the resolution in the report that APC did pass that is generally in support of this with a conservative mindset to implement. So any questions, happy to answer them. Thank you.
Any questions around the table? Councillor Palmer and then Councillor Cherry.
Should we tell him he's muted?
Through the chair, I'll let Councillor Cherry go first. He's a council representative.
No, you're okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, a couple questions through the staff. Thank you for the report. Generally, I'm supportive of the empowering committees. This is a commission, not a committee, and again, there's provisions for empowerment, even to a higher level for commissions. I do have a couple questions. First, just came from the question I had on coming from the director making you had a comment just at the end, and now I've forgotten exactly what it was. You made a comment right at the very end that, the conservative implementation. Can you clarify exactly what you meant by the conservative implementation, the recommendation from the commission?
Through your worship to Councillor Palmer, it's to do with the fourth bullet point that the APC passed, that they recommend still bringing forward larger scale complex current planning applications, including those that are in the community interest, such as those that do not have sufficient policy guidance or those that elicit community opposition and concern. And the reason why you hear me reference a conservative approach to this is because that's not really something that you can necessarily quantify. We can't say a rezoning application that creates 10 units is considered complex, but one that creates 9 units is not considered complex. So it does require some discretion from the Director of Development Services as well as council to make sure that we're meeting the spirit of that resolution. So that's where that comment is coming from, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. And then through the chair, regarding the conflict of interest, just clarification, I believe that the committees and commissions are subject to the same requirements as council. I might be maybe not interpreting or understanding that entirely correctly, but I just want to get clarification. And sort of, I'm fine with the way it is, but I'm just wondering if the community charter does not already address the conflict, technically address the conflict of interest issues. That might be a question for the corporate officer.
Councillor Palmer, so the bylaw itself, the original bylaw was very specific. And I think that the amendments before you make it a little more vague and in accordance with the community charter.
Okay, I think I'm fine with that. I think just sort of a general comment, something for council to be aware of, and more importantly for committee members to be aware of their legislative responsibility of conflict of interest. It seems to me that at times we get into some very grayish areas regarding conflict of interest, and so that's kind of generally my comment on that. Thank you, Acting Mayor Lucio.
Thank you. Councilor Cherry.
I was just gonna add a comment that I feel that the APC is a, Sound Trump-esque, great group, very strong, very well educated and knowledgeable, and have been underutilized for the last 4 years I've been on there, both as a committee member and as the council rep. And this gives the opportunity to actually utilize them to their, well, a lot higher their potential.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments or questions around the table? Councilor Orlando.
Your worship, a question of staff. If this was the changes were to be implemented, how are the changes implemented vis-a-vis ongoing applications? So is there, as of the date, how is that going to work? Yeah.
Through the chair of Councilor Orlando, so staff have been in communication with applicants. For example, we had a rezoning application that was just submitted today, and we usually send an email to them, say, hello, I'm your file manager. Here's all the details of the process that you're about to go through. And we've been noting for them, be aware of this amendment that is being brought to council. It could impact your application midstream, where you may not be required to go to the APC necessarily in accordance with the bylaw. So once the bylaw is implemented, any applications that are midstream would be directly affected. So again, unless council or the director requires them to go to the APC, they would not be required to go to APC. So it would be effective immediately.
Okay. Thank you. Another question takes a look at if this is to free up time for the APC to focus on other initiatives, not the review process, but other initiatives. What is the plan in the short term? What things will they be working on? What has been identified as next steps for the APC to work on?
Through the chair of Councilor Orlando, so short-term rental. Council just directed us on October 22nd to revisit the short-term rental issue. So that would be the first big large-scale planning project that we'd be bringing before the APC to get feedback on and ultimately work through the process that we're going to be administering with them. So it would likely be an introductory meeting to go over the project management plan that's been prepared to familiarize APC with it and ultimately go from there. They might be looking at doing some research with other municipalities, give some feedback to staff on ideas that they think would be relevant. And a good way to think about it is those that are familiar with the OCP process that we went through with the steering committee that supported us through that OCP review. That's kind of what we're hoping, albeit at a smaller scale. We're hoping the APC would be able to serve that function.
Okay. Thank you. And Acting Mayor Lucio, through the chair, I should say, just one more question, if that's all right.
Yeah.
The fourth recommendation from the APC, it says that APC recommends bringing forward larger scale complex current planning applications to the commission for review that are in the community interest, including but not limited to those that do not have sufficient policy guidance and or those that elicit community opposition and concern. The track changes in the bylaw show, for example, that actual benchmark like dollar value numbers for like it's showing its age here for probably larger scale complex garages are automatically flagged for review. My concern is that I think it's healthy to maintain a barrier between staff who must work on the technical details of bringing forth an application and council who ultimately has to answer to the residents and voters on decisions that are being made. And it is a bit unclear to me as to how that line will be drawn. These words such as larger scale complex, those are adjectives that don't have a defined value. And how are we addressing the concerns that all of a sudden, someone's digging a hole for something that no one has seen before, and has numerous concerns for the community. So how are we going to address those concerns and the technicality? And further to that, what options may be available in terms of amendment to council at this point to address those concerns, perhaps as an interim measure until we're more comfortable with its full-scale implementation.
Through the chair to Councilor Orlando, very good point. And one of the things that we would be relying on in this particular case with the amendments, the way that they've been drafted, is the professional discretion of staff as well as the professional discretion of council. So those are kind of the two firewalls for applications that could be deemed contentious. So one thing to note is if we receive an application, it's deemed kind of borderline, maybe a little bit contentious, a bit larger scale of an application, but the director says it doesn't need to go to APC and it comes to council. There will always be an option in that council report, should this amendment pass, for council to direct that application to the APC. So there's always going to be those two firewalls. And one of the big ways that we will gauge it, and this is where it's really hard to craft this in terms of a bylaw amendment, is applications where there's not sufficient policy guidance. So a good example is the Copeland redevelopment project on the corner. Our heritage design guidelines haven't been updated, and that one required a development permit as well. And we don't have design guidelines to guide from a policy perspective how Mackenzie is going to be able to be developed for commercial purposes. The design guidelines are purely residential. So it's a really good example of an application that the director would certainly forward to the APC for comment because we lack that overarching policy guidance. Now, hopefully we get to the point that we have policy guidance to cover just about every situation that's going to come forward. And we don't have to worry about that because the APC has helped us craft that policy to guide development in the city. But it will certainly at this time require some discretion from both staff and council to be that firewall.
And if I may, a question arising from the response through the chair, it was my understanding that the process would be they come to council and council has the opportunity to refer to the APC if they so choose. Is it my understanding now that staff would at their discretion send it to the APC first?
Through the chair to Councilor Orlando, it could be that. So the way an application could go, it could come in, staff could look at it and say, you have a large scale development permit and a large scale development variance that you're requesting. The director is recommending that this goes to APC as part of your review. The applicant might come back and say, no, I don't agree with that. We would say it's spelled out right here in the APC bylaw that the director has this discretion. You're going to the APC for review of your application. Or it could work out where the director reviews it and says there's no requirement to go to APC in this particular scenario, and then it comes to council, and council says, you know what, we've heard concerns from members of the public, or for whatever other reason council deems it to have merit. Council says we want to defer it and direct it to the APC for feedback before we render a final decision on this. So it could go one of two ways, and it might take a little bit of working through it to ultimately determine which application should go forward. But it will be at the discretion of staff, and if staff say no, comes to council, council still has the discretion to kick it back to APC.
Okay, Worship, and if I may, one more question through the chair. In terms of black and white, and thank you for the response, and this is the next question, subsequent question. In terms of black and white, what must come to council and what may not, or what will not come to council under this, under these proposed changes? And you know, directly the motivation for the concern is that, again, something that is discretionary slips by, and then I will not stop hearing about it for years and years and years from residents, and they will say, well, what did you do? And I'll say, well, I didn't know about that. So is there any way to express with certainty what will and will not be coming to council as a result of these proposed changes?
Through the chair to Councilor Orlando, you are going to be testing my memory here. So first off, we're not proposing any changes to the delegation requirements that are spelled out in our development approval procedures bylaw. And within the development approval procedures bylaw, the only development permits that are delegated fully to staff that don't need to go to council, and keep in mind, these delegated permits don't go to the APC right now. They're fully decided on by staff, is technical development permits. So we need a geotech or riparian area report, except when it's within the Revelstoke Mountain Resort development permit area. It is for residential development that consists of one building that contains 4 or fewer units. It is for industrial development where the gross floor area of the building is 1,500 square meters or less. And I believe there's a maximum height requirement in there as well. And it is for commercial development that is 2,500 square meters or less, I believe, excluding development within the downtown area that always was required to come to council, except when it's just for minor facade improvements. And I believe that's it. But this is all spelled out in the development approvals bylaw, and we are not proposing any changes to the development approvals bylaw. So every single development permit that comes before council right now, as per that bylaw, will still come before council. It just skips one step along the way where it doesn't go to the APC unless council or staff say, yes, go to the APC. So it helps to expedite. We have some applications that go there. And again, you're looking 3 to 8 hours for a staff report to be drafted, depending on complexity. We had 31 of these applications between 2023, 2024. It tacks on anywhere 3 to 5 weeks, depending on scheduling. It could be 8 weeks if we don't meet over the summer. So it does prolong the development approval process. It does take a lot of staff resources. And in the end, we're having the APC consider what is generally non-discretionary permits. So they're getting kind of pigeon-toed into this area that their feedback can't readily be acted on in as significant of a way as it would if we have them helping influence general land use policy throughout the city.
Okay.
How'd you memorize all that?
It's like it's his job or something.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a few, but staff are also happy to follow up with council. We can send you an email that details exactly what permits go to council if that would be helpful as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Palmer.
Thank you. Through the chair, good discussion, good comments from Councillor Orlando regarding that, and some clarification. A couple questions just coming out of that. First, is this going to help staff with capacity issues a little bit?
Through the chair, Councillor Palmer, yes, it will certainly help with capacity challenges.
Great. And regarding delegation, I'm pleased that we're not changing this delegation at this time. However, possibly in the future, there may be that discussion may come up again. Just through the chair to the director, is there any? Do you have any sort of preliminary thoughts on potential future changes to delegation, whether that delegation is to staff or to the APC?
Through the chair to Councillor Palmer, in an ideal world, we've worked with council and the APC to amend all of our development permit area guidelines so that this community is very happy and they're very solid development permit area guidelines. That has to get done. And hopefully that would give the confidence for council to basically say, staff, these can all be delegated permits. They're non-discretionary permits. You have to follow the guidelines. Staff are not allowed to issue them unless they align with the guidelines. It helps expedite process. It substantially reduces the amount of time that staff spend on writing council reports for permits that we are obligated to issue. I can completely appreciate right now, though, because our development permit area guidelines have not been updated in so long, that we first have to get that done so that council has a level of comfort with how those guidelines are being administered before we can move forward to considering further delegation to staff. But there are many municipalities that have fully delegated development permits, again, because they are non-discretionary and they have their councils predominantly focus on land use changes, where you're looking at a change in the use of land or a change in density.
Great. And then just further through the chair, yeah, thank you for that. I think that train of thought is very good. One of the observations I made, and this is sort of a general comment, at the APC, quite often there is motions or recommendations coming back to council that are trying to capture a consensus of a multitude of issues. And my observation was that in the spirit of compromise, some of the recommendations were coming without some clarity as to how there might be differences of opinion coming from individual members at the APC. So just a comment basically at this point that if some of those more contentious items could be divided out, it certainly would provide me as a council member with better clarity of where some of the contentions are on specific issues. I think I've talked to staff a little bit about that, but it's just sort of a general comment. But through the chair again, thank you to staff for this update.
Thank you. Councilor Sherry?
Thanks, Your Worship, Mayor Lucio. If I can, to Director, wow, sorry guys, to Councilor Palmer. Do you want stuff like that reflected in the minutes, or, you know, is there something that I haven't provided as council rep that you think I could add to better reflect the APC meetings here at council?
Through the chair, possibly, Councilor Chair, we could have a discussion offline on that a little bit, specifically on the APC. I think on the next report that we have on some of the governance items, maybe some of these things will come up discussed on how not only the APC, but how the advisory committees can also be more effective and feel more empowered, well, actually be more empowered in their recommendations coming back to council. Overall, I think this is a really positive change on that the members of the commission, specifically APC, will feel more empowered and feel that their voices are being heard and acted upon better. So I think we're making good progress in a positive way, and there will be always opportunities for more improvement.
Perfect. Happy to have a chat with you afterwards as well.
Director Simon?
To the chair, and sorry, I just wanted to circle back, if I may, to Councilor Orlando's question about delegation, because I think I was thinking in square feet, not square meters, because that was pretty large. So just to clarify, right now, development permits that will come before council are those that create, those that will be delegated to staff, rather. It's easier to frame it that way. Would be those that create no more than 4 principal dwelling units, except within the downtown area or Revelstoke Mountain Resort area. Any industrial development that does not exceed 2 stories in height, doesn't exceed 1,000 square meters, and is not located within 100 meters of a residentially zoned property. So again, to mitigate that potential land use conflict. Any commercial development that does not exceed 3 stories in height and does not exceed a maximum gross floor area of 500 square meters. Again, except within the RMR DP area and the downtown area. And then when located within the downtown area, any renovations to or in addition to an existing building can't exceed 100 square meters in height. And any exterior alterations to the facade are delegated to staff. And then again, any technical development permits are delegated. So you can see it gets really specific and gives that more black and white approach where staff have their marching orders on what they're allowed to sign off on.
Thank you. Does someone want to put the first motion on the table? Councilor Sherry?
I move that the Advisory Planning Commission establish an amendment bylaw number 2401. You read it first time.
Second for that? Councilor Devlin? Any question on this one? Councilor Orlando?
Thank you to the chair. Yeah, my thought is this. I'm happy to support reading the first reading. However, more traditional first, second, third reading process is to space them out. This is a change that will have fairly significant ongoing impact and does not strike me as being something that is very timely right now, that we need to go to third reading for now. So I'm happy to support first reading. I don't know that I'm not going to support second and third reading at this point. And the reason being is I have, for example, heard feedback from APC members, and I did not have answers to questions thanks to now having this report, which I first saw late last week, and a chance to talk with staff. I can reach back and have an opportunity to speak with them or others who may be concerned. So I would favor just slowing it down on this one. I don't think we have a deadline or a timeline necessary to make this change. So I'm happy to go with first reading, but I don't want to support second and third reading.
Thank you. Councilor Palmer?
Thank you, Councilor Lucio. I also will be in support of first reading. I concur with Councilor Orlando and suggest that the second and third reading come at a future council meeting. We're just debating the first reading at this time. It's just trying to avoid some awkward procedural things on the next motion. If we do put a second motion, I would support second reading, but it would certainly strongly recommend that we not do the third reading in today's meeting. But we'll, as far as the motion on the table right now, it's just the first reading. I'll be strongly in supportive of that.
I see no other comments around the table. I'll call the question on first reading. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Through the
Councillor Bond?
Yeah, I'd like to put a motion that the first and second readings be considered for bylaw number 2401 be considered at a future council meeting.
First.
Second and third, you
Second
mean?
and third?
Second and third.
Oh, sorry, second and third. Yes, sorry.
The motion to defer that to,
It's not a motion to defer. It's a motion to consider it, so it would be a debatable motion.
okay. Second for that one, Councillor Devlin?
So speaking to the motion, just further to Councillor Orlando, that this would come forward probably at the next council meeting for second and third reading.
Any other comments around the table?
Yeah, I'll make a comment.
Yes, sure.
The APC is supportive of these changes. And I haven't actually really heard any compelling arguments as why not to. The last time this was updated was almost 25 years ago. I think it's about time it's been updated again. So.
Councillor Palmer?
Thank you, Councillor Lucio. So just for clarification, specifically for Councillor Cherry's comments, I am supportive of this bylaw. I think basically this motion to allow that full debate to be completed at a future council meeting doesn't diminish that in any sense. In fact, in a way, is supporting good procedural process. So it's not, this is in no way intended to be at all negative to APC. I'm very appreciative of the APC and what the staff has done. And this is just to get into a better track on procedures. So on things that have bigger significance to the community, that we allow that a bit of time for sober reconsideration. Thank you.
Any other comments around the table?
Yeah, and compelling reason, for example, for myself, I would say is just follow up on some of those details, have a better understanding, and communicate with other community members, including APC members who also share those questions when they came to me to ask about them. I didn't know because we hadn't had this report and the details before us. Now that we do, we can wait another meeting for this, as it's not something like the rates bylaw that are an annual schedule. It will just mean taking another 2 weeks to make sure we get it right.
Councillor Stapehurst.
Yeah, maybe through the chair, maybe Councillor Orlando can elaborate on what the APC members were questioning him about, and we can have that opportunity to have that discussion right now. As I believe the Director Simon has already answered all of the questions that I've heard asked. So if there's something that, you know, we have the motion on the table right now to have this debate. Let's have the debate and let's call the question. So that's my comment.
I look at it, thank you for the comment, Councillor Stapehurst. I look at it more as an opportunity to communicate back to stakeholders who reach out to me, not to be a conduit of their concerns right now. The questions may have already been answered in the responses, but being able to reach out to them to provide follow-up and feedback is part of the opportunity. And finally, it is normal convention to start with first and second reading. Going to first, second, and third reading is not typically the normal way of doing things, especially on something that has no specific time pressure right now.
Thank you for your comments. Any other questions around the table? Okay, I'll call question.
What is the question?
Mm-hmm.
If I
That the second and third readings be considered at a future council meeting. For
So if you vote in
bylaw,
support, it's being pushed away.
for bylaw 2401.
I mean, if you vote negatively, it's not doing anything because we don't have a motion to do it today.
Okay, so all in favor of moving this to a future council meeting? Counselor Devlin, Orlando, Palmer, and Lucio are in favor, opposed? Counselor Stabenhurst and Counselor Cherry are opposed. Balance of council is in favor. We'll move on to 11A, staff reports, governance standing committee.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Lucia. So the governance committee is a new committee that the mayor has established under section 141 of the community charter. It's a standing committee. In working with him, we have come up with the attached terms of reference that do not require approval by council. This is under the mayor's authority. Basically what it is to support the corporate services department and the rest of council in doing a committee and commission review, a policy review, and to help standardize council and committee of the whole meetings going forward. I think that there's been discussion around the table that it would be easier, it would be easier for corporate services to have a working group so that we understand what council would like to see prior to presenting it to committee of the whole or to council, and then there being a whole lot of back and forth. This would just eliminate one portion of it, and it would allow the two members that Mayor Sauls has appointed to this governance committee, Councillor Palmer and Councillor Stapenhurst and himself, to move the agenda forward on those three items.
Thank you. Does someone want to put this motion on the table? Councillor Stapenhurst.
I move that the governance committee 2025 scheduled meeting dates be included in December 10th, 2024 scheduled for council approval.
Seconder for the motion, Councillor Palmer. Any discussion on the matter? Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Lucio. A special thank you to the mayor and staff for doing this. I think it's a good movement forward on clarifying some of our processes to help us function more effectively in the future. So I'm just appreciative of that work that staff and the mayor have done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments around the table? Councillor Orlando.
Just a question regarding, not directly regarding the committee, but just trying to get back up to speed regarding the change of time for committee of the whole and council meeting minutes. So that is something that's going to come forward if this is approved in a report, a recommendation from staff or a proposed schedule from staff.
Thank you, Mayor, Acting Mayor Lucio, to Councillor Orlando.
Yeah.
So that, I think what will happen is because this committee is not scheduled to meet until January, it's for a 6-month term.
Mm-hmm.
When the meeting dates come forward to council on December 10th, the dates themselves will remain standard, but there will be an option for council to choose either the 2 o'clock start time or the 3 o'clock start time consistently for council and committee of the whole meetings.
Thank you. Follow up, Councillor Orlando.
Yeah, and this is not related to specifically to the committee, but more about the council times. There was a brief note in the staff report. I think in terms of looking towards into the future on planning our meeting times and the loads on, for example, future council members, working people, that maybe a little bit more consideration needs to happen as to the guidelines that are expressed in our, and I can't even remember, I think the council remuneration committee provided a fairly comprehensive report on how to be more inclusive, how to get more people on council, how to have a more diverse representation of community members on that committee. To be plain, I did send an email to administration requesting a bit more of a thorough look and some more options for looking at how we are going to change that interim schedule. I guess, moving them to 3 or potentially moving them to both at 3 on Tuesday and Thursday is one option. But I would have liked to have seen a more holistic exploration. Perhaps that was something that could happen next year to better account for that. But I feel that we could have explored it, and that it's not necessarily a matter of setting those times according to what our preferences are, but it's maybe all of staff's preferences, or everyone here, or community members, or the community members willing to participate. So just my thoughts on that.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments around the table? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That passed unanimously. We'll move on to 11B, development permit application. Councilor Devlin.
This looks like a lead one. I will move that the development permit DP 2023-012 be issued for the form and character of a ground-oriented multifamily development at 2104 Airport Way. And then the rest is for the package and the descriptions.
Seconder for that? Councilor Cherry. And any questions for staff?
Is there a presentation?
Through the chair, no formal presentation. Happy to give a brief overview. I just want to confirm, I think that the resolution read 2023 in there. It's 2024-12.
Oh, okay, it says 2023 in my package, but I'm happy to take that amendment from a non-council member.
Through the chair, so the development permit application before you is for a 61-unit ground-oriented multifamily strata development. This is the first phase of development on the lower bench. Council may recall, this was actually under the prior council, I believe. Actually, no, I believe it was under this council. There was a text amendment to the comprehensive development zone at Revelstoke Mountain Resort to allow density shifting. So this area was not originally entitled to a lot of density and a lot of development potential. And through that text amendment, they are able to shift density from area 1 to this area where it doesn't contain as many sensitive environmental features and has more flat land that is more suitable for residential type development. With that amendment, council was very clear at the time that they were not supportive of seeing commercial space hotels, lodge units out here. So the text amendment was very specific that this area was restricted for those uses. And in addition, short-term rental will not be permitted within this area. It will be restricted via restrictive covenant that will be registered on title. We've been working with the proponent as part of a corresponding subdivision application for this, where that requirement to register the restrictive covenant is outlined on the preliminary layout review for that subdivision. The proposed development will bring the total number of bed units, and keep in mind bed units are different than dwelling units. About 4 bed units roughly equates to 1 dwelling unit. Would bring the total number of bed units at the resort to 2,504, 736 of which are ultimately employee housing. So as indicated, this is the first density shifting outside of area 1 to area 5 here. And as such, there would be a requirement to register a restrictive covenant at building permits to track that density shifting, because there are certain caps within the CD zone that doesn't allow so much density to be shifted to any one particular area. So this is a form and character development permit. Council would have previously seen an environmentally sensitive and environmentally hazardous development permit for works within this area. And you might see that there's been some works under those permits that has been permitted for pre-servicing of the site. So again, this is phase 1, 61 ground-oriented units that will be restricted for any form of tourist accommodation, short-term rental, hotels, lodges, and is intended to be what has been dubbed as a community housing area under the resort development plan. Any questions? I'm happy to answer. Obviously, you'll notice Ms. Hartling is not here. She is on some well-deserved R&R, and she had originally worked on this file, but the applicant is also here, who generally speaking, applicants don't speak at development permit considerations, but if council does have some specific questions, just so you know, the applicant is here if it may be more appropriate to direct to them.
Thank you. I have a question with the restricted covenant. Is that just for the subdivision of this phase, or is that for the entire lower bench area?
To the chair, it will be for the entire lower bench area, following through on the intent that was made clear at the time of the zoning bylaw text amendment to allow for the density shifting.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions around the table? Councilor Stivners.
My question is in regards to the intersection that's going to be proposed at I think in our maps, it's noted as Community Street and Nicole Road. My concern is that the traffic that's leaving from Revelstoke and heading up to the ski hill is going to impose some major challenges on that intersection right there. And I don't see anything that includes a traffic study. I noted that engineering doesn't have any comments, but I was just wondering if the director could weigh in on that.
Through the chair to Councillor Stapenhurst, it would be the Spruce Road extension that would come from the south side of Nickel Road and would cut diagonally through the development and then ultimately go west towards Airport. Mr. Black is here. I don't know if he has any comments on the suitability of that intersection at Nickel and what would be the Spruce Road extension in terms of the traffic volumes that we're anticipated to see out there.
Your worship. To Councilor Stapenhurst, it is a road with having separate entrances on two major roads. As development happens, at least with this first phase, if that intersection becomes problematic, the residents will use the other exit to go to Nickel or Airport to Nickel and or vice versa to come to town. So at this point in time, with the number of houses that are proposed, I do not anticipate a significant impact to the traffic. It is 60 units roughly, Paul. And so traffic generation is in that range, probably 3 to 4 additional vehicles per hour at peak. In addition, we did a South Revelstoke traffic analysis for the funding of the roundabout at Mackenzie Village and the future roundabout at Airport Nickel. So all the traffic volume has been included in that study, and the roundabouts in the future will accommodate those future traffic volumes at build out. So the risk to the community with this development from the traffic impact is very low.
Great, thank you for that explanation. I appreciate that.
Councillor Palmer.
Just to follow up to that question through the chair, what will trigger the roundabout at Nickel and Airport?
Your worship, and to all of council, the trigger has been defined in this report. Unfortunately, I do not know that off the top of my head, but I believe that it would be an LOS of D, which indicates usually a wait of more than 2 minutes at a typical intersection, or if it was signalized a 2 or 3 cycles to get through that intersection. We are nowhere near that at this point in time.
Just follow up then on that roundabout for this development and other developments that are impacting that intersection. How are they contributing to that future cost, or are they contributing to that future cost? We have not yet, through your worship, we have not yet determined the cost funding program for this. The way we managed the upper roundabout at Nickel and Mackenzie was purely based on the traffic impact at build out for those intersections. As such, in that case, I believe the mountain put in approximately 70% of the cash for that. Mackenzie Village about 20, and I believe the town contributed about 10 for the existing impacts. So whatever the traffic modeling indicates that the future, we would utilize those impacts based upon future development to develop a cost sharing program for that future infrastructure works.
To your worship, one thing to note as well, I know Mr. Black and his team have worked with Mackenzie Village to sort out cost sharing as part of their phase 5 subdivision under their master development agreement, where I believe it'll be in the vicinity of $400,000 that would be contributed to that roundabout at Airport Nickel. And we've also had 2 prior subdivisions where they have dedicated land, so that we make sure we have enough land to accommodate that future roundabout, specifically on the east and west side of Airport Way. So there has been planning that's been occurring in the background to make sure that we're ready for that roundabout in some capacity.
Thank you.
And if I might add in conclusion, the development agreement with Mackenzie Village requires funding for that intersection in the amount of $70,000. The owner, the developer, has committed to us that he's more than willing to put forth this sum that Director Simon had mentioned. So he's putting his feet where his mouth is.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer, follow-up?
We're probably shifting a little bit into a different discussion, and I think there's a motion on the table, or should be soon, if not. It does sort of raise some questions on who's paying for that, and what the mechanism, whether it's DCCs or these other agreements. It does sort of raise some other questions, but I think as far as the form and character, we're shifting off into a different discussion. So yeah, I don't have any further comments at this time.
Thank you. Any other comments around the table? I'll call the question. All in favor? Passed unanimously. Number 2.
I will move that the owner provide security for the due and proper completion of landscaping in the amount of 125% of the amount identified in the cost estimate to the city of Revelstoke in the form of cash or unconditional, irrevocable, auto-renewing letter of credit issued by Canadian Chartered Bank or credit union prior to issuance of the building.
Did I get that a little faster next time?
I can try.
Second
Get
for
through
motion. I'll second that. Any discussion around the table? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Passed unanimously. We'll move on to correspondence 12A. So we've received this letter regarding the meeting at UBCM. I was not at UBCM, so I will pass that on to any counselors that want to make comment on that, but I appreciate their list of funding opportunities for us to address the logjam on the facility.
We'd love to have Tim do this one, as he was in the meeting and has brought the issue up before with the PIC.
Councillor Palmer, go for it.
If I can nominate him.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just a comment. It was nice to at least get a letter from them that says there's a lot of bureaucracy that prevents common sense from prevailing. So basically, it does articulate that the ministry said there has been a study done by another ministry that says there's no imminent danger. However, I challenged them in that meeting at UBCM on that very question, saying, okay, are you taking the responsibility? And they said, well, just a minute. That's just, all that means is it's not going to break instantly at the point of that meeting. But it's not addressing a future potential risk of, if we get into flood conditions, and we're seeing flood events that are devastating communities worldwide with climate change. And meanwhile, here in Revelstoke, we have this log jam that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's posing a bigger risk. And I would like to see council in the future flex a little bit more muscle on trying to get something resolved here. I'm concerned that we're taking on a responsibility by taking the action directly for something that is outside of our jurisdiction. So those, I'm appreciative of the letter, because that ministry, in some ways we went to the wrong ministry because they said, well, we don't have any money for this, talk to somebody else. And that's basically the summary from them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Orlando.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, I might ask staff, engineering staff, or any other staff who wants to jump in on this one. So we got a letter saying it's not a problem, but you can apply for some grants to maybe deal with it. it's a river. I don't know if it's our river or what. They're saying it's not a danger. There's a report saying so. We've just completed some flood mapping things a couple of years ago. Used to be a dam. The Rod and Gun Club blew it up with dynamite once way back in the day to clear it out. What's next is my question here. Is it a danger? Is it not a danger? What's going on with the log jam? So if I could maybe put staff on the spot to see what's going to happen next with this, because it's some conflicting things. And one detailed question I will ask is, have we seen this assessment that they refer to from the Ministry of Forests? And do we agree with that? Because it has flooded there back in 1983, like it went out all the way to the roads and stuff, which was a high water event. I don't know if that was logjam related, and the last thing I want to say is I'm not an expert in log jams whatsoever, so I don't know what I'm talking about, so maybe staff could elaborate on next steps.
So thank you through the chair. I can't comment on the forestry report or the impact of the assessment. Maybe that's something we can ask our consultants, but the position from the city is simple. The river is clear. It's provincial jurisdiction. It is not ours. And if you want to do works on the river, you need to apply for section 11. We've instructed our consultant, which is Associated Engineer, to submit an application to do works in their river. So we first need to get the owner of the river, the jurisdiction having authority's permission to do works in the river, and that's what we have charged our consultant to do. So they're filing an application. Secondly, we did get an estimate on what it would cost to address this issue. That will form part of our application while we work with the ministry and the jurisdiction having authority. And thirdly, any cost to remove the log jam, to mitigate, to reduce this risk will be borne by either a federal grant or a provincial grant or both thereof. Staff are not recommending that any City of Revelstoke funds or reserves be assigned to this because it is a provincial jurisdiction. So we want to use federal funds, whether it's disaster mitigation or provincial funds. We want to get a section 11. We want the province to apply for funds at the federal level with us once they approve the section 11. And we charged our consultant, Associated Engineering, to do that. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Mr. Black, to that. But our position remains the same to the province. This is your river. This is your log jam. Yes, we need a section 11, but we're looking for provincial and federal funding. Once you grant us a section 11 to do works in the river, please work with us. That's been our position.
Your Worship, I would only add, that we, as part of the section 11 application, we had to submit a work plan to mitigate that logjam. And so we do have a mitigation plan attached to that permit. The estimate from the specialty contractor was on the order of $1 million to take care of this event. And again, the long term is that it's going to happen again. So we need to have a long-term vision on how the province and the feds are going to manage this.
Just add to that quickly. When we first approached the province to support an application for federal funding, it was the province that said, well, we can't really do that because you haven't applied for section 11, which frustrated the city because we're going to the federal government for disaster mitigation funds. We want to do a co-applicant approach where both the province and the city is asking the feds for support, but the province came back and said, well, technically we have to not support this application until you submit a section 11. If approved, then we will support an application for federal funding, which hopefully will yield a $1 million grant from the feds or the province or thereof, subject to them approving the section 11 and approving our mitigation plan. Very frustrating, but we, the city, consider this important. So we're driving it without committing any public taxpayers' money to it. We're seeking 100% funded by a federal or provincial or hybrid grant.
Thank you for that. Councilor Terry, do you have knowledge?
Yeah, I just want to say that the $1 million in cost that we're looking at to remove the log jam is significantly less than the damage that we would face downstream, both city infrastructure and the community. So I do appreciate the meeting and all the other opportunities that they brought forward for funding, but yeah, I'd like to see us move forward somehow.
Thank you for that. We'll move on to 13A, communications, the finance committee minutes. We were all present for this meeting. We went through the budget timeline. Director Moore walked us through the reserve levels, the spending initiatives, the operating and capital, key general capital projects, all the way down to the unfunded list. Is there any other questions from council before we move on? Perfect. We'll move on to Advisory Planning Commission. Councilor Cherry.
Thanks, Mayor Lucio. The last meeting, the APC spent about an hour and a half making comments and looking over the bylaw number 1650, the one we looked at today. And the other 15 minutes were just choosing meeting times for the future.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Perfect. We'll move on. Ms. Delaselle, is there any questions from the press?
There are no questions from the press, Your Worship.
Thank you. I will ask for termination of the meeting. Councilor Stapenhurst, Councilor Devlin, all in favor? Meeting is adjourned.
Job.
Only a couple process.